Recording. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's date is April 11th. Goodness gracious. Edition of Contributor Experience. We do have a full agenda today. And since we are now booking a weekly meeting, we're no longer going to separate out topics. So today is whatever you'd like. Again, if you have not added your name as an attendee to the list, please do so. So in case we need to get back to you about a topic, that would be great. So first things first, we always do reoccurring items. If there's any new contributors on the call, which there are not. And then do we have any community meeting issues, George? Hosts, graph of the week. I know Aaron signed up for graph, so we're good there. Do you have anything that you wanted to call out for help about community meeting with?
Just so we forgot that, any luck with the SIGs, Josh? Did they get back to you? I know we only have a day left, but.
Well, everything's confirmed, except I'm still trying to talk cluster ops into doing something. They're basically demoting themselves from a SIG, maybe even from a work group, down to whatever this future thing that we're potentially doing is. I think it would be actually a good story to discuss in the community meeting, but they haven't committed to doing that.
Okay, so cluster ops
They were just
before. I think you're mixing them up with
on-prem. I'm mixing them up.
Okay.
Mixing them up is one of the discussions was whether or not those two should merge.
Yep. So I think we should have them all because Aaron and I were just filing a bunch of bugs and Paris did last night that we actually don't have any procedures on how to convert something to a working group or that kind of stuff. So I think it wouldn't hurt to see what people think.
I want to. I just have not gotten a response from them saying that they're willing to go ahead and do that.
Okay. So I'm thinking if they don't, then we reserve that slot to kind of basically maybe, I don't know, do a call for comments or does anybody want to pencil in a policy to propose to the steering committee or does the steering committee figure this out?
The first thing I think we need to discuss is whether or not we're going to do, I think the latest proposal was BOFs.
Okay. I heard focus groups.
Yeah, but tail end of discussion, BOFs seem to be meeting with the most approval.
Okay. Could you let steering committee have that discussion? I think.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So we want to wait on that, any discussion of that in the Kubernetes community meeting until the next steering committee meeting,
which is today. So.
Oh, okay. Perfect. All right. Good.
Steering.
All right. All right. And then it won't hurt then if we only have two SIGs going tomorrow. And then the demo. Who's the demo? Oh, demo's Red Hat. So you're good.
Yeah, cryo. And if they don't show up, I'm going to get a net and a trident and fly out to Westford.
Excellent.
All right.
So we're good for community meeting.
Boom. All right. And then, of course, we're always looking for people to help us with office hours and meet our contributors. Get in contact if you would like an invite for either one of those. And then now we proceed into our full-time agenda. Looks like, George, you had some topics from SIG AWS Roadshow.
Yeah, the big one was they were confused about sub-projects. Like, they were like, do we just make one, and is it lazy consensus? Is there a template, like the charter? Like, how do we do this? And
I think the new governance that Joe PR'd against has information about this. I think it's laid out somewhere, but I don't know if it's necessarily a lot of that's been drawn out.
Okay.
Are you talking about working group or
Sub-project?
Sub-projects,
yeah.
I think if you look at the templates for the charter for a SIG, because SIGs own the sub-projects, it talks about that in there, and then it can be different per SIG.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I will look at that then. And the other bit of feedback they had is the help wanted tag. They get confused because sometimes they want help wanted, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that issue is appropriate for new users. So they were wondering if we can get some granularity there. And I haven't caught up on issue labels or anything, so I thought I'd just bring it up.
I'm always confused by this because help wanted means help wanted. And there have been a few people who've complained that contributor experience enhancements and help wanted are often focused only on the novice. And help wanted should also mean that there are places where if you have expert experience in a particular SIG area that you could step up and do it, but it's something that's backlog and not otherwise currently owned. So it could be a great place for a newcomer to the project as well.
There's already a proposal for this in Kubernetes community.
Yeah.
Oh.
Could you find the issue, please, so we can link it in the notes so we can
that would be
do
awesome.
this collectively again for the fourth time.
Sorry, because I started to realize that I'm going to end up going back to all the people I'm road showing to kind of give them the status. So this really helps. I know that we keep repeating these and stuff, but like I feel that some of the stuff we just have to do it until it's like repetition.
Yeah,
Sorry, Aaron, I know you mention this stuff every day, but just trying to
I mean, I think we've mentioned this all the time, which is that the help wanted needs better documentation, and I don't think anybody's done it. So somebody needs to take it as an action, and probably should take it this week so that we don't hear about it again.
I link the issue in Zoom chat if somebody wants to put it in the right place in the agenda.
Cool. I'll do it.
Thank you, sir.
So my initial proposal was to use good first issue, which is another label that's actually recognized by GitHub.
Yeah.
But there's been some discussion about other possibilities.
Okay. All right. Well, I will summarize this stuff and send it back to my SIG at AWS. So.
In the meantime, I don't know if the more human-facing issue, because I saw it again in the Reddit AMA, is like I would go look at help wanted, except nobody seems to be maintaining those issues, so we don't know if they're stale or whatnot. We've said this a lot. Like, if we can actually just get somebody to go through, that would be helpful. Not that I am volunteering myself on all slides all the time this week, but I think that like that would really, we know it's a problem if you get somebody who can just do it.
Yeah, and last time someone brought this up at Meet Our Contributors as well, and we said, well, there's a label for this, and we had nothing tagged. So we went through and like added a bunch. So it's like we're also not doing this for ourselves as well. So I think
I would totally welcome somebody new pairing with somebody a little more experienced. And if the new person's like, I don't understand this makes zero sense, great. Let's remove the help wanted label and have somebody who's got a little more visibility in the project to just confirm, this makes sense.
So just to jump on this real quick, one of the things they've done on Helm is they have somebody every week, and it changes week by week. They call the issue Sherpa. And basically it's their job to go through and start tagging things. And you switch it from week to week, so nobody's got a permanent responsibility. It doesn't have to be any of that, but there's a pool of people who are the leads, and every week somebody takes it on and goes through to make sure these things happen. And if you can a week, it's easy because somebody else can. And it's a way to take turns. I don't know, is that something that contributor experience, a group of people would want to do?
Like I feel since we have to do like mailing list moderation and stuff, we would just, we could just call it on call, and it would include mailing lists, issue Sherpa. That way we don't die by 1,000 paper cuts, but it still rotates.
This is not something one person can do. There's a lot that you filed in Kubernetes.
Yeah.
We're talking about the community
in theory, but the reason that it works well for the Helm community is because that's a single focused sub-project, right? We're talking about the help wanted label as applied to all of the thousands of issues across every single Kubernetes repo, right?
Okay.
And so in an ideal world, SIGs are responsible for tending to their issues. So contributor experience could go nag the SIG technical leads to say, hey, is this still relevant? Is this still pertinent? Or we could start taking away their cheese and removing help wanted labels from their issues and see if they don't. I don't know, but I just think that like it's an undue technical responsibility on a group. I agree that we're responsible for we are interested in making sure that is a meaningful label, but we maybe don't have the best judgment about whether or not it's relevant.
Yeah. So the volunteer thing I was talking about for our SIG. So sorry, I didn't mean us doing help wanted for everybody everywhere.
Would this be an idea to have maybe get a couple of SIGs to try doing more of this and sub projects, and then somehow evangelize how it's being successful to try and egg more SIGs into doing this? I'm just trying to think of, is there a way to get the ball rolling? Because I like the idea of better labeling and help wanted and listing it, and trying to get everybody to do it and going to work. But if a few people do it and it's successful, then you can start, at the community meeting, somebody can showcase, here's what we did, here's how it worked, kind of egg others to say, we don't get enough people in here. So
Right.
Something that helps.
Because if it got pointed out as a criticism during the AMA and during Meet Our Contributors, maybe we could pitch it as like, look, people are starting to ask why Kubernetes doesn't have these things. People are willing to help. Do we have a few volunteers to consider? Like maybe we should start with SIGs, consider having an issue Sherpa that's a rotating thing, or at least I don't know, make it
as the SIG release issue triage. I end up looking through a lot of issues, and if those people existed, I would start kind of pulling on them, saying, "Hey, would you like to shadow and maybe join the release team?" It could be an on-ramp.
Okay.
I guess at one point we did, last year while working with the triage guidelines, and later I think we identified there are like 5 SIGs which has the most number of issues, if those 5 SIGs have a rep, who can take a turn like issue Sherpa or like a triage rep or something, that can take care of this, But that time also we were told that the bandwidth is an issue within those 5 SIGs because they are the most busiest ones, like SIG network or the SIG CLI, for example. So, any progress we can make there, that'll be really good. If we can convince the SIGs, right, to have a issue Sherpa kind of person or rotation.
I think it's a good idea. I really, like I said in chat, I really think we need to do more workshops and more learning and training. And these are all people problems that major large organizations have, and we're a major large project at this point. So I think like issue grooming and how to manage your SIG better, and like tips and tricks for people on like project management. All of this stuff would be amazing to have. And something that like maybe we can even discuss at the contributor summit in Copenhagen. But let's move on just based off of time, unless anybody else has anything super pending about that. It looks like Aaron's putting in some data too. Aaron I'll do it, but I'll transfer to the agenda. All right. George, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with the AWS? If not, do you want to talk about the community demo hosting guide?
This will be a real quick one. So we had a group of complaints actually about the last demo at the community meeting being too commercial. Namely, it didn't work on Kubernetes. So people were asking, hey, do we need to tighten up the hosting guidelines and all this stuff? But we actually have hosting guidelines that are linked to and everything. I think that just maybe the solution to this is whoever's hosting that week, instead of just saying, hey, are you ready for your demo this week? And we say, show up 10 minutes early. We should perhaps say, please ensure that you're following and reviewing these guidelines, because we did write them out and they say, don't be too commercial. That sort of thing, like keep it something interesting for the Kubernetes community, but still allowing people who have commercial products to demo stuff for the community, but keeping it classy. So we have all that stuff. It's written. So I don't know. Do we kind of want to drive it home a little bit more? That, like, I don't know how everyone here felt about the demo. So I don't know. I did have people complain to me privately afterwards. So.
I think we should continue to drive that home and refine those guidelines.
Okay, so I'll just add it to the document for the host to double check and things like that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, watching Joe's feedback was something special.
Hey, I was like, hey, you're gonna get, if that's the answer you're gonna give on the security thing, someone's gonna say something. Like if it wasn't Joe, someone like. I don't know. It was kind of funny.
The security thing was okay. It was more just that there was literally no way for it to be a Kubernetes thing without going commercial.
Yeah. But
all right, Eeyore, you're up next. You made a proposal for community management related topics. Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yep. So as we currently have first of all, so as you could notice my proposal in the working group thread, I'm proposing to establish kind of like the service desk style mailing list to receive the input from the community on any questions and any suggestions, to provide them any kind of support style from the community admins. So we currently have the well-defined group of people who have some extra rights in the community when we're speaking about Slack, when we're speaking about GitHub ownership, for example, and so on. So as we have the Slack admins channel that is open for everyone in Kubernetes Slack, we can also do the same with the mailing list. So instead of previously as like a mail Sarah, mail Paris, mail George, mail anybody else privately, anybody will be able to send an email to the specific mailing address and receive some response from one of us.
I am in full agreement of something needs to be done in this area, because now we do have a lot of people that have hands in this pot because we have unspoofed ourselves, which is awesome. So there's now like no one single point of human failure in anything that we do community-wise. So I am 100% in agreement. I don't necessarily have a solution for the what. I'm kind of almost like, now that you actually said something that triggered my thought process on what if we do a community management channel on Slack and people will join the channel, and then that's actually their like the start of their ticket, and then each one of us can I don't know, do some, do it based off that. Aaron's shaking his head no.
Yeah. You're going to want a way for people to reach out to you privately and for you as a group to handle it.
Why privately?
In case you're getting hit up for code of conduct type stuff, for moderation type stuff.
That's what Slack admins is for. And
yes. So Slack
have guidelines around that. I mean, I don't think this has anything to do with code of conduct issues. This is more like, hey, I need a Zoom account, and hey, I'm a new SIG, and the following 9 things, like George and I or Eeyore or somebody else sets up like their calendar or whatever it is. It's like literally pretty much a ticket system that happens, except we don't track that anywhere.
Okay. My other head shaking thing was like I like Slack a lot, but I think you're going to get pushback unless you also add email. Like, I think making a mailing list the authoritative place will be friendlier to those individuals who find Slack to be too proprietary for their tastes.
Well, there is one benefit of using mailing list is that we can track everything that's happening in the mailing list, and we have everything duplicated from the mailing list in our personal mailboxes.
Yeah, and it's threaded by default, so you can reply to the message and you can see, affirmative, we have done this task, where in Slack that just is somewhere easy to miss.
And Eeyore, is it too much? And like I responded to your thread, is it too much, too heavyweight to get on CNCF service desk?
We can do it, but the purpose of CNCF service desk was a bit different.
Okay. I mean, I've had good experiences in the past with actual ticket systems. I feel like I might be one of the last people on earth that have, but just curious.
I agree with
I'm not sure that. So if we as community will decide that we need the service desk system, CNCF will do it for us.
Okay, cool.
But from my personal perspective, I'm not sure that we need a real ticketing system in this case. We have only like around five 5-7 people who are the real community admins responsible for almost everything here. So we can simply receive the inputs via the classic email form, and that should be enough.
And is anybody in disagreement with us setting up a mailing list process for check-in and check-out procedures as it relates to community management of the project?
Would check in and check out meaning what? Sorry, I was confused.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that's what I call like anytime we spin up a SIG, or if we're going to be spinning down SIGs, like I said, you know, like the SIG procedures and things like that.
No objections to that. Like, just my feedback from the steering committee is like, if everybody might respond, that you kind of get the bystander effect, where like maybe people are waiting for somebody to take the first lead. So we have found having a private mailing list to Poke and Prod is helpful. If you're saying that you have a Slack channel that you're all active on, that might serve its purpose. But a publicly accessible mailing list as your default ticketing system, and a private mailing list where you can discuss amongst yourselves, or people who aren't sure and are afraid to ask the public mailing list, reaching out privately has served us well as a steering committee.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just community at kubernetes.io or something.
Okay.
Yep. And community private for the private list.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And specifically mentioned that all the requests by default, they should go to the public mailing list, except for some possible sensitive questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to just engage people with the steering committee if they have a code of conduct issue. I mean, that's where they should be going. So, all right, next item on the list, I guess we'll go ahead for actions there. We will go ahead and start that. How do we, George, do we contact Joe to get an email on the domain? Or should we just do a Google group again?
I have no clue.
It's a Google group.
But I did. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. It was either you or you that you both.
Go ahead, Ihor.
Yeah, just my suggestion is to make it as a Google group, and that's all.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I was going to say I found that the CNCF has a mailing list hosting service that they're using.
Yes, we have the lists.io.
Yeah.
But I hate it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like, its UI and UX are totally much worse than the Google Groups one. So the main reason why we've switched from Google Groups to Groups.io is because of the Chinese users, and we have to be respectful in this case for them as well. But as we have we run some tests with our Chinese people from Linux Foundation, and they figured out that you are able to send an email to the mailing list that is hosted on Google Groups, but you are simply not. It's not so easy for you to open the web interface. But the classic web email interaction is so easy as usual.
Okay. Yeah, it's just when I was doing research for the CAP, I found that there's multiple mail providers now, and I was like, we're going to have to figure something out. So,
yeah, you also can't read the archive if you can just send and receive emails if you didn't already know something. There's a lot of interaction problems.
Yep.
So I actually wrote down a bunch of the limitations of Google Groups, but that's a separate conversation. I'll do whatever you want, Paris.
So draw alternatives, right? So we're using Groups.io. Let's say I forget how this is called. So we have an alternative, and it's widely used by CNCF for CNCF projects. So we shouldn't be stuck with only Google Groups. But my suggestion is to use some web UI plus email instead of email only.
I would say thus far the Kubernetes project has exclusively used Google Groups, and I wouldn't want people to be going to different places for different mailing lists. So I can ask the steering committee what it takes. We have steering at kubernetes.io as like a separate Google Groups thing. I can go ask if you're asking about community at kubernetes.io versus like Kubernetes-community-admins@googlegroups.com, right?
Right.
So I'll ask what it takes to get on the Kubernetes.
Yes, something because that's rememberable, right? It's like
Yep.
Well, we have the G Suite account, right? And we have the Kubernetes.io G Suite account, as far as I remember.
Okay, that's CNCF owned? All right.
No, as far as I remember, it's steering committee owned.
Tim, I've got the list somewhere. I just figured that out the other day. Yeah.
Okay. I can follow up with George or Paris after the steering committee meeting later this afternoon.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead. We have 30 minutes left. I actually accidentally skipped 2. So we're going back up the agenda. Looks like it was me and Aaron that I skipped over. Mine is right now our issue queue and PR queue we're talking about on the community repo is what I think high. We've got 90 plus open PRs, 100 plus open issues. I think, oh no, I'm getting kicked out of my room. I think that we should, I don't know, probably do better with issue triage at the very least. I guess this all goes into the issue Sherpa idea for our crew and doing on-call work. And then also I wanted to ask about etiquette. I know I asked George this yesterday too. There's some really old stuff. I mean, it's about to get hit by the bot anyway. But I don't understand why we can't ping the original author and say like, hey, is this working on? Can we close this before the bot even hits it? It might just be nice, but George, I think you said that you just let it go. What are other thoughts on, like, should we set up SLAs, SLOs? Thoughts there?
I think some of the issues aren't like bugs or short-term things that can be closed immediately. Brian brings this up frequently. Some of them are like design proposals or outstanding issues that are just have ongoing discussion over a period of many months or even a year. So it doesn't really make sense for us to ping or even for the bot to ping on those. But what's the advantage of us doing it? Let's say there are other issues. Why should we be doing it rather than the bot? Is there an advantage or what's the concern?
Muted.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry, I just got kicked out of my room. I was just issue hygiene and overall health. That's all. Housekeeping.
Are you talking about in a specific repo or across the org?
Well, no, in the community repo. Like, I mean, there's like issue right now that the last activity was, I don't know, August of 2017.
Yeah, let me actually do a quick story.
And it's kind of like...
And on some of them, it feels like they're just using it as like a to-do list that reminds you every year that you wanted to implement something. And then
and I don't know, especially as we are trying to attract new contributors and trying to get people to read our repos. And it's like, hey, we've got issues that have not been touched for this long. Like, nobody's working here. Keep it moving.
Because when I first joined, I looked through oldest first thinking, oh, I'm going to find a whole bunch of low-hanging fruit. But it was like stuff that obviously had a lot of work put into them. So I didn't feel comfortable just closing them because they were old, but they were also obviously not on any roadmap of any kind. It was like in a backlog almost.
So I think the more... I'm muted. Okay. It looks like just reverse sorting. It looks like a number of them are brainstorming or like throwing ideas out. Mm-hmm. And I think those people want a discoverable way to talk about issues that aren't solved in like a discussion forum. And a random Google Doc isn't very discoverable, so they opted for the GitHub issue. Maybe we can come up with a new strategy that solves this problem, and then we can close the issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I? Yeah, sure. Okay, thanks. So on a similar line, Garrett, if you remember, when we created this, the last meeting we talked about the triage related labels, right? Like
labels.
Unresolved and whatnot, like 4 or 5 of them. So one of the things, it was on the Google Doc discussion. One of the motivation I put there was, and we did get Eric Festa's feedback there. So like Paris mentioned, right, the auto closing of issues, and I explicitly mentioned in the doc as well, it takes like 6 months, right, 180 days or so. So the issue is supposed to be, no, Aaron, sorry.
It's 150. So, no activity after 90 days gets you stale, 30 more days gets you rotten, 30 more days gets you closed. So it's 150. 5 months, not 6, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right, so something like that. Sorry, I'm getting some distraction here. Can you see? So hold on. Give me. Sorry.
Yeah, just to piggyback while we wait for Sadav. Yeah, I mean, like at the point where I'm watching the entire community repo at this point and all of its activity on a daily basis, and like I see the bots go on for the first warning, and then I go in and check the issue myself, and it just looks untouched, and just like what Garrett said about brainstorming and things like that. So I just kind of wonder is it okay from a GitHub etiquette perspective for me to ping this person and say what's up, or should I just leave it alone and continue on with my life? I guess that's kind of where I'm getting at with my deal, because I would love to ping these people, but at the same time, I don't want to be a pushy individual. So
technically speaking, the person's already been pinged by the bot adding a comment saying, "Hey, I've labeled this issue as fail."
I guess, but we're also relying on people getting alerts from GitHub. And
right. So if you ping that person via GitHub, it's going to go to the same place the bot's commenting.
Yeah.
So
I mean, most of the
people them on Slack. Sure, as a human, you can do that. Like watching an entire repo just to keep up with everything that happens in the repo. Welcome to why that doesn't work, Paris. It eventually doesn't work. 90 issues open and 100 PRs open actually kind of seems like a reasonable number of issues for a repo of this activity level, just to me personally.
Okay.
I don't know if that seems crazy high to everybody else.
I feel like it's crazy high for the number of community folks that we have. To me, that's
well, but a lot of things are open. Like I know a lot of the issues that I'm watching are open specifically because they need input beyond this group.
And that cross-sig discussion and lazy consensus can take quite a while, so it's not too surprising to have quite a few of those in parallel over time.
Just for comparison's sake, like Helm has over 400 open issues if I'm reading this graph right. So like it's 100 ain't half bad.
Well, I guess most of ours are documentation, though, and I'm kind of comparing us to like the docs team and the website more as I'm comparing us to Helm. And, I know the docs team keeps, an SLO and SLA, and I guess that's where my ask stemmed from. But if everybody's in agreement that this isn't the right strategy, then I'll leave it alone and let the bot eat it and continue on with my life.
Well, I also learned recently, and there was a roadshow from that SIG Contribex that was talking about growing your community size. Maybe this is a sign we need more peoples.
Yep.
Yeah, so the problem is we have too many open issues. The problem is we're not dealing with enough of them. I don't know. I'm doing my usual dev stats thing, and the number of open issues on website is also larger than the number of open issues on community. So just comparatively, community's not really a crazy repo.
All right.
You can do the math of like activity level versus open stuff, but it seems pretty okay.
Okay. All right. We will continue without
Sadav has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sadav. I was typing.
No problem. Aaron, thanks. Yeah, sorry about that. I think it's some Bluetooth connected with my headsets and some strange things with some music, I guess. So sorry about that. If we reach to a concession with the issue thing, that's great. I don't want to take a lot of time, but should I add something I was saying, or we can, if we have time? I missed the whole thing, but so what I mean, real quick, I was saying, Adam, that it takes typically 180 days, right? Like as you were counting 90 plus 30 plus 30, and one of the things Eric said was with these new labels, if we have triagers identify this issue as a duplicate or like unresolved kind of decision, then the bot can actually read these labels and close the issue quickly instead of waiting for 180 days, sort of 90
So
days.
you could like short circuit that if you as a human apply the lifecycle stale label, which you can do. And then that subtracts 90 days out. And then the bot will go straight from 30 days from stale to rotten, 30 days from rotten to closed.
So at least 60 more days sort of thing, right? Couple of months.
Right.
Yeah. So what's this? I mean, this one was, like I said, when Eric had some comments that we can sort of close it right away, like within that, sort of within like a 30 days time frame versus 60 days. So I just wanted to mention, because we're talking about closing the issues sooner than later, right? If they has to be closed,
Yeah, no, I totally, there's no reason we can't have additional issue queries to say if this has been triaged as blah and still nobody has looked at it within blah days, that it can be closed for sure.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, thanks. Yeah, that was the whole thing I wanted to mention.
All right, let's hit the next topic. Aaron, the LGTM results from yesterday's meeting with testing.
Okay, I'll share my screen so we can see what I'm talking about. I guess Christoph isn't here. So the TLDR is, I think, like we're mostly in violent agreement over the principle of least surprise. So Eric laid out here, like right now, here's what happens, /LP here, I'll blow this up if this helps with readability. LGTM approves, like applies the LGTM label and says, I approve everything. I'm an approver. And approve, adds the approved label. And the GitHub pull request review, like click the button, does nothing. And what we want is principle of least astonishment. LGTM applies LGTM. Approve applies approved. And then he's asking for the pull request review to do both of the things. So have the pull request review act like /LGTM does today. And so we're in violent agreement over the principle of least surprise here. This PR is ready to go. We're basically ready to merge this, and we want to canary the changes to have an explicit /LGTM and /approve required in the community repo, then roll it out to the rest of the repos. As we do that, give people a heads up that we're going to start looking at modifying the functionality for what a pull request review does. Because right now, a lot of people are used to clicking that and giving the little green check mark and assuming that it does nothing. And we're saying we're going to have it start do something. And okay. So give a heads up that that's coming down the line, canary that someplace, and roll that out. Make sense?
Let me two things about this. Number one, I wanted to let you know that when this particular discussion was happening yesterday, I know that some people who were not part of the SIG testing wanted to join the discussion and were unable to get the link to do so. So you may be arguing with those people in the future.
Great. Well, for what it's worth, like I linked all of the notes from that discussion. And they're viewable by Contrivex. Yeah, I see Garrett's looking at them.
The second thing is that if we change the PR review process to effectively give LGTM an approval, we will need to update dev stats.
Sorry, say that again?
We'll need to update dev stats. That's all.
Why would we need to update dev stats?
Because dev stats has a number of reports for things like PRs waiting for LGTM.
Right.
And they will not pick up on the fact that it's gotten an approval via GitHub review. So we'll just need to remember to.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like that's a larger change that we want to kick off a discussion about that. Our opinion right now is we think that should, apply both the LGTM and the approved label, which is how DevStats picks up things, I think, by the application of those labels. I'll have to check. But so that feels like a bigger change, but the less controversial change is we got agreement from the community. LGTM only means LGTM, approve only means approve, and we're in violent agreement to move forward with that.
Questions, concerns, comments?
Just thought it was funny that we went for Lisa Stunniford and then it says LGTM should approve the PR. Just when we document it, can we be really clear? Like,
yes,
what actually happens? The LGTM label is immediately added. The files that you're an owner for, those are now approved.
Yeah, Eric's terminology is not what I would use. You noticed I was mentally translating that when I read it out loud, and I'll make sure that that's what's documented in the place with the things.
If you could also put examples in there as well, like,
yes,
like Bob wants to make
overly documented.
Alice disagrees with it, so she would type this. You know what I'm saying? So it's more.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Aaron, so this is going to be org-wide then, right? There's no configurability?
There is configurability. We would prefer that it be org-wide, though. So
okay, by default, it's going to behave like this. And then if a repo strongly wants a different workflow.
That is our desired state. The way we're going to transition to that desired state is to start with the desired state in community. And then if we're happy with it there, maybe turn it on for the whole org, or maybe roll it out to a couple more repos. So we want everything to be configurable for sure.
So yeah, one more time. I'm sorry, George, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, okay, so now you're confusing me because I thought the whole point of doing this was to make everyone be consistent so that.
Okay, so for the Kubernetes project, we would prefer to end up in a desired state of the entire org follows the exact same process.
Okay.
For crowd's sake, such that it can be used by different projects beyond just Kubernetes, we want those configurable options.
Okay, perfect. Yes. Say it that way, and then you'll be good.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
And just to jump on here, I think the configurability can be used for the way it's rolled out to the Kubernetes community. Because instead of just taking it out to everybody all at once and saying, here it is, you can approach, when road shows and things like that, approach different teams, work with them, help them transition. So that principle of least astonishment, people know about it, they've been brought up, they can see how other people are doing it, and then they're brought on board. The same way you'd onboard a large organization, right? When you change technical stuff, the way you onboard people, I mean, you've got to tell everybody all at once, and that's easy to do in a company where you can get them all in the same meeting and talk to them, or you can send out emails. But in this globally distributed community, it can be a little hard. And so we can use that configurability to help onboard people in the same way.
And that's what I was talking about with rolling this out in the Canary fashion. And for what it's worth, like, we've had a discussion with the community at large on the Kubernetes dev mailing list and came to a consensus that, yes, let's move forward with this back at the end of February. So, like, I don't want us to take 3 to 4 months to roll out changes of this nature going forward. I appreciate the need to bring people in, and we have this configurability to let us roll stuff out, but I hope that the next change that we roll out, we can roll out a little more quickly than 3 to 4 months.
All right. And Aaron, what's the best place for folks to give you feedback? Is there the issue there? Never mind, I see it.
That's a pull request. That pull request links to another issue about allow LGTM to not also mean approve. I can find that issue.
And then when is this hitting the community repo?
I will defer to Christoph for that. I'm sure he'll announce.
Okay. All right. And then I guess based off of our charter, we have certain communication processes that we need to follow for changes. So I'll also catch up with Christoph to make sure that that's happening.
Okay.
All right. And then next is me and then George. George, I'm only going to take less than 2 minutes. So you're up right after me for the forum. I put in 2 issues. We kind of talked about some of them already, but I would appreciate comment or if anybody wants to take a stab at this. One is the documentation for sunsetting SIGs or working groups or dissolving them into some other fashion like the birds of a feather, etc. I pinged steering on this issue because I think steering might want to do the why I pinged contributor experience on the how because I'm thinking that's like more the logistics, again, like taking away someone's Zoom rights, etc. So I thought maybe that could be some kind of combo effort. And then moderation guidelines for our mailing list. Should we have just a moderation folder? I'm not folder, I'm sorry. Should we have a moderation file that includes Slack and mailing lists, or should we keep those separate? And if anybody wants to take a stab at that, feel free. Questions, concerns, comments with either of those documentation requests? All right.
+1, we need them.
Yeah. And then George, go right into the forum.
Yeah, just real quick. So I have a KEP basically for a community forum, but it also overlaps with lists and Slack and stuff. And there's probably be a lot of bike shedding and whatnot. So I just wanted to remind everyone that that's there. Some days I think it's a good idea. Some days I think we have too many communications channels. Some days I think we can collapse some of the stuff that we use mailing lists for maybe into this. I don't know. I think it's worth having the discussion. So I just tossed that in there, the KEPIS 007. Thank you.
Questions, concerns, comments? I every day think we have too many
communications channels.
I mean,
way too many. But
yes.
I just witnessed another one of these arguments about why wasn't this PR discussed on channel X? And the proposer was like, well, we discussed it at the meeting and on Slack. You can't expect me to discuss it everywhere.
Yeah, and then Joe's like, hey, if you're going to add a new thing, you got to make sure you shut down at least one old thing. But at the same time, people keep bringing up concerns about decisions being made in Slack and whatnot, and I figured it's a good way to start the conversation that's going to take us 2 years to figure out. Can you already tell I'm already cynical about this? But it's all right. I took after Aaron on this one.
I see. I'm optimistic because I think sooner or later Slack is going to do something that makes it impossible for us to use it, and so then we'll have to migrate in a hurry. That's what passes for Josh-style optimism.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, I just started writing everything down, and you know, there's some limitation with some lists. You know, as Ihor mentioned earlier before, and they have that. The CNCF tried to use Discourse, and it didn't work for them, but that some other open source communities are using it, so I figured it's worth start kicking the can down the road for that.
I'm always down for a test, but I feel like we need to time box that test in. Like, do we have like 3 months on there right now or something?
Yeah, so I just put 3 months because I figured that sounds right. The reason for that is I'd want it to be hosted, and I kind of need money for that. So I don't know, I don't know what would be next. And like, if we approve the cap for a prototype, do we just ask the CNCF for money? I don't understand. So I've been so busy with writing everything down with people's opinions on what they think they need that I haven't really thought about next steps yet. I'm still kind of in the gathering.
I can
phase.
suggest you to start with, so please send an email to me, Chris, and Dan describing this.
Yeah.
So figure it out, like what can we do from the financial side?
Yeah.
And what's the next step on the KEP, George?
We just need to know whether it's worth doing the thing that I propose in the KEP, which is building a prototype.
I think we have consensus there, but
if people could, one way or the other, whether you can or not, or +0, if you could drop that in the pull request, that would really give me an understanding how strongly people feel or not feel or whatever.
Can you do like a final call for those comments on the mailing list?
Sure. And then plus 72 hours. Yeah,
yep.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. And let's just get some time boxed and so we can make that actionable. All right. And that's it for today's meeting. Anybody have any other things that they would like to bring up with the group while we're all here? Aaron's smiling. This is going to be good.
How are the slides for the dev stats discussion coming along? Josh.
They're not so far.
Okay. friendly reminder that they're due Monday.
Okay.
Anybody else? Is Elsie still on the line? All right. No, I'll catch up with her. Elsie and I are submitting the abstracts today for the deep dive and update for KubeCon. So that will be updated on the schedule. And oh, you know what? We didn't. Tim Pepper, I did not hear from you about your okay with helping us lead the developer guide piece to the deep dive since Ryan can't make it.
I apologize. I feel like I'd said a verbal, but I didn't do anything more than that.
All right,
yes, I am. Yes.
Woot, woot. All right. So that's all scheduled then.
And then also compared to the other day when I recall us last talking about this, we have heard that Gwen is going to be there as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All is well there. And for those that are curious, for Contributor Summit, we are going to be sending an email out either today or tomorrow with the vote for the unconference session of the current contributor track. Lots of good sessions. I proposed many, so I hope that I'm not talking the entire time. But things like what we just talked about, issue grooming and KEPs and all of that good stuff will be on the vote. The reason why we're voting ahead of time, because people are like, well, that's not very unconferencey, but we're voting ahead of time so that we don't waste time during the day, because we do have a short window of time for tracks. Questions, concerns, comments? All right.
I don't know if you ever got any feedback from the steering committee, but I'll just verbally say, like, I didn't. They all looked good.
Okay. Yep. No, I just, the last time I know a lot of folks had issues with some of the discussion topics, so I just want to make sure that people are in the know. All right, and I'll keep the vote open for at least a week. Give at least another reminder. I might even keep it open for 2 weeks, but TBD on that. All right. Last call, and we are done. See y'all next week.
Happy Wednesday.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.